Hey guys, tonight we're galloping into a story that doesn't get told often enough. There are no knights in shining armor, no castles to storm, no quests for glory. Just you, a wind-battered satchel full of government secrets, and a very, very tired horse. You're riding through a land that smells like cold smoke and dry grass, stretched so wide it makes your thoughts echo. Welcome to the Mongol Empire, specifically its astonishing postal network, the Yam. You're not here for glory. You're here because you've got mail, and no offense, but you probably wouldn't survive the week. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your legs ache as your horse thunders across the steppe, but you don't slow down. There's a rhythm to it now. The rise and fall of hoofbeats, the whistle of air slicing past your ears, the creak of your leather saddle cinched too tight against the horse's flanks. Your fingers grip the reins like your life depends on it. Because it probably does. You are a messenger of the Mongol Empire, part of a vast, humming web of couriers, way stations, and whisper networks that Genghis Khan himself considered more important than any palace or battlefield. This is not just a mail route. This is the central nervous system of the largest contiguous land empire in human history. You carry a message, and it must arrive. Your satchel thumps against your side, stuffed with tightly rolled slips of paper sealed in silk. Some are simple orders. Move troops here, collect tribute there. Others are cryptic, marked with red dye and tied in triple knots. You don't know what they say. You're not supposed to. But you know they matter. You can feel the weight of empire pressing through the cords. The air is sharp in your lungs. The steppe stretches out in all directions, a watercolor of gold and shadow. A falcon circles above, disinterested in your urgency. You pass scrub trees twisted by wind and distant herds of grazing animals who don't seem to notice empires rise and fall beyond their grazing fields. Ahead lies your first urtege, a relay station, one of the hundreds built roughly every 25 to 30 miles. It's not fancy, a squat yurt, a low paddock, smoke trickling from a chimney pipe. But it's stocked with what matters: fresh horses, guards, tea that tastes like ash, and someone whose entire job is to take your horse, feed it, and slap a new one under you. You feel the horse beneath you start to slow, sensing the change in purpose. You lean forward, give a low command, and it picks up for one last burst. Dust kicks around you as you arrive. A man steps from the yurt with a bored expression and a cup of something steaming. He doesn't ask your name. He sees the tag around your neck, a small silver paiza badge etched with Mongol script, and nods. That badge gives you access. It's the reason doors open, soup is served, and soldiers salute. You dismount, barely pausing before swinging onto the next horse. It snorts, clearly displeased to be dragged into your over-caffeinated schedule. You mutter an apology and ride. Behind you, the station keeper leads your first horse toward a trough, muttering something about sandflies and overworked couriers. You don't hear him. The wind is back in your face. The empire waits. Hoofbeats, again. This time, in rhythm with your breath. You are one rider among thousands, part of a system so efficient that it could move orders from Mongolia to Persia faster than most kingdoms could sharpen a spear. Genghis Khan understood this. He didn't just build armies, he built motion. And you? You're the motion. The next station is a full day away. You know the signs. Watch for the half-dead tree bent eastward, the field of black stones that looks like spilled ink. Avoid the shallow lake that smells like rotten leather. Bandits like to wait there, hoping someone slows down. You won't. The sky darkens slightly, not storm, just evening. You adjust your coat. The wind here speaks a different dialect, colder, with the taste of old ash. You check the message pouch again, fingers brushing the silk wrapping. Still there, still sealed. Good, you breathe. The horse gallops. The empire continues. Your hands are stiff on the reins, knuckles red from the dry wind, but you don't loosen your grip. You spot the smoke of the next ertage long before you see the station itself. Just a thin grey smear rising from the steppe, like a signal that someone is awake and the tea might be warm, or at least not cold. The relay posts are everything out here. Without them, you'd be just one person on a horse, slowly starving under a giant sky. But with them, you're part of a machine, a living artery, a strand in a massive invisible net that stretches from the Pacific to the Black Sea. You reach the station just after sunset. The horses here are already saddled. Someone must have seen your approach and prepared one. You nod in gratitude to the station keeper, who squints at you like he's been expecting someone taller. The structure itself is simple, a yurt tightly bound in felt, its roof sagging slightly under a recent rain. Inside, you know it'll be smoky and warm, maybe a bit sour-smelling from horse sweat and boiled mutton. But for a minute, you let yourself stop. The courier badge on your chest still gleams faintly in the dusk. The station keeper holds up a cup. You drink without asking what it is. It tastes like boiled leather and old dreams. Still, it warms your chest. This station is one of thousands. They were placed precisely like pebbles dropped in intervals along the veins of an empire. Every 25 miles or so, just far enough that a horse can gallop without dying, just close enough that a rider can make the handoff before collapsing. Each one stocked with fresh horses, guards, and spare tack. And a ledger. Always a ledger. Because while you're moving fast, someone's keeping track. Historians still argue whether these stations were manned by soldiers, herders, or loyalists assigned from conquered cities. Some say they were families pressed into service. Others claim the station keepers were among the best-paid civilians in the empire. You're too busy catching your breath to ask. Back on the new horse now, the satchel resettled at your side. The night deepens. The moon rises, thin as a horsehair. The stars begin their slow, watchful shimmer. You feel smaller under them, but more connected too. Like you're tracing ancient lines written in light, you think about the distances involved. From Karakorum, the imperial capital, to the edge of the Khwarezmian desert, about 3,000 kilometers. A normal messenger might take months. You? Maybe 10 days, at most. Because you don't ride one horse, you ride dozens. You swap horses every station. Sleep when the message allows. Eat when your stomach wins the argument. Push through when it doesn't. You are never not moving. The sound of hooves on dirt is your lullaby now. The yurt smoke your incense. The word yam, the name of the postal system itself, is no longer just a word. It's a verb, a pulse. You ride, you yam, and the empire rides with you. You pass another traveler in the night. He steps aside when he sees your badge. A merchant maybe, or a wandering monk. You don't slow. He nods in respect, or maybe fear. You don't look back. With that badge, your paiza, you carry imperial authority. Towns must feed you. Locals must house you. If they refuse, they'll regret it. You remember a story the last station keeper told you, between mouthfuls of salty broth, about a courier who rode 3 days without rest to deliver a single message to a general already dead. The general's tent had burned the night before. The message? Instructions to avoid fire. You didn't laugh. Neither did the station keeper. Some messages arrive too late. Others arrive exactly when they're supposed to. Your job is to make sure yours belongs to the second group. The stars shift above you, dragging a new wind. The ground feels different now, softer maybe. You're entering new territory. The horse seems to sense it too, ears twitching, hooves clipping the dirt more cautiously. You spot a fox watching you from a low ridge. Its eyes catch the moonlight, flash once, then vanish. Another station soon, another horse. Another cup of tea that might be soup, or soup that might be tea, but it all blends together now. You are one of the bones of the yam, and you are still moving. The wind wakes you before the sun does. Not that you ever really slept. You'd nodded off for maybe 20 minutes, huddled under a blanket of wool that smelled like wet dog and sour milk, curled inside a corner of the yurt at the last station. But your body doesn't really rest when your mind knows it is still carrying the words of an empire. You're back in the saddle before dawn blushes the horizon. The new horse is younger, leaner, eager. You can feel it vibrating beneath you like a drawn bowstring. You barely have to nudge. It takes off like it has its own message to deliver, and maybe it does. You're deep into the network now, past the quiet farms that waved politely, past the cautious mountain towns. This stretch of steppe belongs to speed. There are no witnesses here, only watchers, birds, wolves, the occasional flicker of a distant campfire whose inhabitants wisely remain unseen. This is where the Mongol courier system earned its legend. The horses were the miracle. Small, shaggy, deceptively tough creatures that could gallop for hours, thrive on withered grass, and tolerate a rider's weight even after 2 days in the wind. The Mongols bred them for stamina, not showmanship. No flowing manes, no elaborate bridles, just resilience. At every station, a courier could expect a fresh mount, already fed, brushed, ready. No time wasted. Some stations even kept rested reserve riders, ready to take over if the messenger collapsed. The mail would move, no matter what. You remember a phrase your guide said back near Karakoram: "A dead rider is unfortunate. A delayed message is unforgivable." That's comforting. The path here is mostly invisible. Just faint tracks in the grass, a natural dip in the land where thousands of hooves have passed. But the horse knows, and so do you. You reach another relay post by midday. You're given a slab of dried meat and something that may have once been milk. You take it, you don't ask. You glance at the station's flags. Standard symbols fluttering above, a stylized arrow, the imperial seal, a mark in blue for urgent messages. Your badge gets you priority. The station keeper doesn't ask what you carry. He doesn't want to know, but his eyes rest on the silk wrapping poking from your satchel. He knows enough. You swap horses again, this one taller. You groan slightly as your muscles protest. Saddle fatigue is a quiet punishment, worse than hunger in some ways. You start counting in your head. You're on your 7th horse? 8th? It doesn't matter. You ride. The air is warmer now but dry. Dust rises behind you in a long, narrow tail. You try to keep your mouth closed. Last time you rode with your mouth open and caught 3 flies before the first hour ended. As you crest a hill, you spot something remarkable. Another courier. Coming toward you. You slow just slightly. He does the same. As you pass, he raises 2 fingers. Greeting, acknowledgement, maybe a shared curse at the saddle sores you both pretend not to have. His horse is lathered with sweat. His eyes are red. You see yourself in him. A moving reflection. You both vanish behind your own dust trails. There's a rhythm now. The ride has become its own kind of meditation, painfully repetitive, strangely comforting. The clip of hooves, the creak of the saddle, the pulse of air. You're alone, but you're not lonely. The road hums under you like a low chant. Historians still argue how wide the Yam system truly was. Some maps claim tens of thousands of miles. Others suggest only a few key arterial routes. What is certain is that the web of relay stations could connect any 2 points in the empire faster than any competing state. Genghis Khan himself once sent a message over 1,000 miles in a matter of days. The King of France would have needed a month. And the Mongols weren't sending just commands. They sent intelligence, battlefield reports, tribute records, marriage negotiations, spying updates, even weather warnings. The empire ran not just on swords, but on messages. And you're the bloodstream. You start to hum a tune your mother sang when you were small. It's out of place here, but that makes it sweeter. The wind snatches it quickly, but for a second it's yours again. You ride a little faster. The empire exhales beneath you. You've been riding for hours when the storm hits. It doesn't come with warning. One moment the sky is pale and silent. The next, wind howls like a broken reed pipe, and the horizon dissolves into stinging dust. You duck instinctively, wrapping your scarf over your nose, pulling your hood low. The horse doesn't panic. It knows this drill. But it slows to a cautious trot, hooves thudding into dry ground, now made treacherous with gusting grit. The Mongols had a word for this kind of wind. You don't remember it exactly. Your tutor in Karakoram mumbled it through a mouthful of dried plum. But you remember the meaning, the wind that blinds without warning. You squint into the storm, trusting muscle memory and the invisible thread that tugs your horse toward the next relay. You're almost there. The station appears like a mirage, its yurt low-slung and swaying, guy ropes straining against the gale. A flag, imperial blue, flaps wildly, nearly torn in half. You don't dismount so much as tumble off, your legs stiff and uncooperative. A teenager appears, barefoot of course, and leads your horse away. Another figure emerges from the smoke of the fire inside and hands you something warm and viscous. You don't ask. You drink. Inside, it smells like singed hair and something boiling too long. But it's warm. You drop onto a rough mat, letting the heat soak into your fingers. The station keeper peers at your badge and raises an eyebrow. Then he points at a small wooden box near the wall. Inside it lies your new best friend, the paiza. Each courier has one, though no two are exactly alike. Yours is oval-shaped, engraved with the symbol of the Great Khan, and a string of authority lines in old Mongol script. It's made of iron, some have gold or silver depending on rank, and hangs from a braided cord. You wear it openly, not because you're proud, but because you don't want anyone to accidentally stab you for breaking into their food stores. With a paiza, you can command attention. Station keepers hand you fresh horses. Townspeople open their homes. Even minor nobles bow. You are the voice of the Khan, even if your lips are chapped and your eyes full of dust. There's a story about a courier who once walked into a fortress, dripping wet, carrying a message wrapped in oilskin. The guard at the gate tried to stop him. The courier flashed the paiza and was let through. The fortress commander later sent the gate guard home. Not fired, just sent home. The paiza is more than a badge, it's a key. Some were forged with ranks. Others had magical inscriptions, blessings from shamans, or small charms tied through the holes to ward off injury. Superstition is rampant in a profession where falling asleep can mean riding face first into a rock. You trace the edges of yours absent-mindedly as you sip something tea-like. You ask the station keeper, "Any news?" He shrugs. No rebels, no floods, just wind and boredom. That's a relief. You stretch briefly before standing. Your knees crack like old branches. You're given another horse, this one older, steadier, the kind of mount that knows how to dodge wolves without being told. You thank the station keeper with a silent nod and press the paiza to your chest. He does the same. Formalities done, you're back in the saddle. The storm has mostly passed. The air smells like scorched grass and cold rain. You inhale deeply. The horizon is clearer now. You can see for miles again. A distant ridge cuts across the land like a broken blade. Your destination lies beyond it. Somewhere. The sun dips lower. Your paiza swings lightly at your chest with each step. Some say it's heavy. You've stopped noticing. Historians still argue whether the paiza system was universally respected. Some say local governors ignored them when it suited them. Others claim merchants forged them to get free food and shelter. But most agree on this. When a real courier showed up, flashing that badge, no one asked questions. You ride on. The next stretch of road hums beneath your horse's hooves like a quiet drumbeat. It's mostly flat, with tufts of dry grass and the occasional low shrub trying its best to be a tree. The silence out here is thick, heavy, like the land's holding its breath. You've been ridden alone for so long that even the jingling of your saddle rings like a full conversation. Then, like a polite cough in the distance, you spot movement ahead. 2 riders, not bandits. They're too relaxed for that. Their posture tells you they belong here. And as you get closer, one of them raises a hand in greeting. They're messengers too, not from Karakorum, but from the southern roots. They wear layered cloaks, dust-stained boots, and wide-brimmed caps against the glare. You exchange nods, but no one stops. No one ever does. There's too much empire to carry. You think about what you're holding. Inside your satchel, tied with black twine, wrapped in embroidered silk, is a scroll marked with a gold seal. You don't know what it says. You're not supposed to. But one of the station keepers whispered that it came from Batu Khan's tent and that it was bound for Samarkand. That's far. Your job isn't to reach Samarkand, just the next station. Then someone else takes it further, like a relay of whispers. A chain of galloping shadows. The Empire's most sensitive documents never move in one jump. They're relayed by dozens of riders, broken into parts, each person only responsible for their leg of the race. If something goes wrong, if you're shot at, detained, buried by snow, the message still lives on. In your line of work, that's the only comfort you get. You adjust the strap across your chest. The weight of the satchel has become familiar, like a second heartbeat. Every time it bumps your ribs, you remember, this message is bigger than you. Still, you wonder, what kind of secrets does the silk conceal? Military orders, marriage negotiations, a grain tally from a rebellious province, instructions to execute someone whose name you'll never know? You tighten the knot anyway. Your fingers brush the seal on the message, a small gold plate stamped with a hawk in flight. You've seen that emblem before, in the banners of an officer who never blinked during thunderstorms. Your pace quickens. The horse senses it, responds. You're both more alert now. Up ahead, the terrain changes, rises slightly into shallow hills. The grass here is shorter, grayer, less forgiving. You spot a tree, twisted, leafless, its bark shredded from wind. Beneath it, a cairn of stones. Someone was buried here. No marker, just the stones. You look away. This route isn't famous for hospitality. Bandits lurk where the stations grow sparse. Wild dogs roam without fear. And then there are the curious souls who want to know what you're carrying, not why. The Mongol response to intercepted messages was not subtle. There is an old story told in low voices at relay fires about a courier who vanished between stations. Weeks later, a rider found his body. The satchel had been untouched. His attackers had opened it, read the scroll, and then panicked. Everyone involved was executed, including the man who told the story. Or so the legend says. It's probably not true. Probably. You pass another cairn. This one has a small horse skull atop it, bleached white by years of sun. A warning or a tribute? Hard to tell with the Mongols. They respected their horses, but they also used them like tools. A horse that carried a general to victory was honored. One that stumbled during a message run might be skinned. Historians still argue about the relationship between Mongols and their animals. Were they affectionate or just practical? The truth is, it depended. A general might sleep beside his mare. A courier might trade his horse without a second thought. You just want this one to live long enough to make it to the next station. The sky's starting to darken again. Not storm this time, just the daily hush before twilight. You know the routine. Scout a place to pause, check your gear, avoid sleeping near standing water, mosquitoes the size of your thumb, and never tie your horse too tightly in case you need to bolt. You find a small hollow near a ridge. The wind settles there, soft and warm. You crouch, unwrap a strip of meat and chew slowly. The message remains unopened. Your horse dozes beside you, one eye always half open. You match its rhythm, breath for breath. The scroll rests between you both. And somewhere, in a palace of gold and blood, someone waits for its words. The stars come out quietly. You're lying back against your saddle, using it as a lumpy pillow, while your horse grazes in a lazy semicircle, tethered just loose enough to wander but not bolt. The message satchel lies beside you, tucked under your arm like a sleeping child. You'd never admit it, but you sometimes whisper to it when no one's around. Above, constellations unfold in their usual indifference. The Mongols had their own names for them, far from Greek myth and Latin poetry. The bear they called the stars of the north. The bow arched through the summer sky. And the 3 horses, which you can just barely make out, were said to ride forever above the steppes, guiding riders too stubborn to die. You try to remember a star poem. One of the station keepers had recited it like a lullaby, something about a great eagle with flaming eyes who eats moonlight. You can't recall the words, but the rhythm sticks in your head like saddle chafe. You don't sleep, not fully. Too many noises, the wind through grass, the creak of your saddle leather, the sudden snapping of a twig that might be a fox or might not. Still, you rest. Your heart slows. Your thoughts soften at the edges. Then the morning pulls you up with grey light and a smell of dust and something suspiciously like goat pee. Breakfast is a strip of cold dumpling wrapped in yesterday's bread. You chew it mechanically while cinching the saddle tight again. Your horse makes a noise that's halfway between a snort and an insult. You ride on. Not long after sunrise, you crest a low hill and spot another station, not much more than a yurt and a smoke trail, but it's enough. You wave through. The station keeper doesn't bother with questions. He gestures you inside, and while someone swaps your horse, you get a fresh water skin and a single boiled egg. It's the best thing you've tasted in days. Inside the yurt, the walls are decorated with cloth maps, not cartography as you know it, but rather mnemonic aids, strings tied with knots, bits of shell, tiny symbols inked onto hide. The Mongols often didn't write down routes, they memorized them. This, here, is the postal system's nervous center, oral geography. The station keeper explains, in a voice like sandpaper, that some of these maps weren't really for directions. They were signal codes, used to warn of rebels, floods, or sickness along a route. 1 knot means detour, 2 means danger, 3 means do not proceed unless you want your name carved into a goat femur and burned as a warning to others. You nod, smile, sip your egg tea. These people talk about death casually, like it's just another thing you might pass on the road like a pothole or a startled crane. You mount your new horse and thank them with the formal nod. A second later, you're back on the road. The sun is higher now. The dust behind you rises in long ribbons. You watch it shimmer as you gallop, like the empire itself is trailing you. You think about who else is riding today. Somewhere, another courier is galloping in the opposite direction. Someone else is handing off a package of silk-wrapped paper. A few are delivering verbal messages, trusted couriers known as tamachis, who memorize their entire dispatch. No parchment, no risk of interception. Tamachis were a rare breed, trusted with the kind of messages that never touched ink. You're not one of them, but maybe one day. Historians still debate the size of the Tamachi network. Some say it was limited to elite routes. Others argue they formed a shadow system entirely parallel to the main yam. Either way, you admire their nerve. You try memorizing your own message, just in case. It begins with, "To the commander at..." and then your brain fills in wishful blanks. "Please award the courier with 2 goats and a vacation." You chuckle. The horse flicks an ear at you. Back on the path, you pass a cairn marked with ribbons. Blue and white strips fluttering in the wind, tied to a stake beside a pile of smooth stones. An ovu, a sacred marker. Riders often pause here to circle 3 times or to leave a pebble. You do both, because even when your job is speed, you still make time for ghosts. You whisper the rider's prayer just loud enough for the wind to hear and drop a coin beside the stones. Then, 1 foot back in the stirrup, you ride on. The empire doesn't wait, but it always remembers. You're halfway through your ride when the first real sign of trouble appears. Not a bandit, not a broken horse, but a scroll. A second scroll, to be precise. The station keeper who hands it to you has that look, part guilt, part amusement, mostly the expression of a man who knows he's about to ruin your day. "It's going to the northern frontier," he says, shoving the scroll into your satchel before you can protest. "Urgent." He pauses. "And delicate." The scroll is thinner than your current one, but the wax seal is twice the size, deep red, and imprinted with a falcon carrying a skull. That can't mean anything good. You sigh through your nose and adjust the satchel to make space. 2 scrolls now, twice the risk, but also possibly double the stories to tell if you survive. The horse you've been given is black and sharp-tempered, the kind of mount that looks at you like you just insulted its grandmother. It kicks the ground twice before you're fully mounted, and the station keeper chuckles. "You'll be fine," he says, already walking back to his yurt. "Probably." You gallop out into what seems like the flattest, quietest stretch of earth the gods ever ironed. Then you hear it, off to your right. A whine in the air, a distant rhythmic noise, thud, thud. You know that sound. Archery practice. You veer slightly off path and squint to the horizon. A Mongol army camp, temporary but vast, set up along a dry riverbed. Banners flutter, riders circle, archers line up like teeth. You've heard the stories. Sometimes the postal route is redirected through a military zone. Sometimes it's just a coincidence. Either way, your badge will get you through, or not. You ride directly toward it. As you approach, 2 guards gallop forward, faces expressionless, arrows notched but not aimed. You slow the horse, raise both hands, and let your paiza badge glint in the sunlight like a desperate prayer. They don't speak, just glance at one another, then nod. You're waved through. Inside, the camp pulses with motion. Horses snort, fires crackle, messengers shout names. Black tents billow in the wind. Soldiers glance up, curious but uninterested. You spot a general near a map table gesturing at a circle of officers. You do not make eye contact. This is not your story. You're just the envelope. Still, you notice things. One of the tents has a mark on it, a red dot in a silver ring. You've seen that symbol before. It belonged to a general who famously received 9 messages in one day and responded to all of them with a single word: yes. You hope your scroll doesn't require that level of brevity. You're halfway through the camp when something strange happens. A boy, no older than 12, runs up beside your horse holding a bowl of water. He lifts it up wordlessly. You slow, take the bowl, nod your thanks, and sip. The water is lukewarm and faintly metallic. Perfect. He's gone before you can say anything. Historians still argue whether these kinds of camps were always so well-oiled. Some claim the logistics were exaggerated in later chronicles, embellished by poets who never smelled a horse. Others believe the Mongols were simply that efficient. You pass through without further incident. Just beyond the camp, the land slopes gently downward into a shallow ravine. Rocks litter the ground like forgotten chess pieces. You pick your way through carefully. The horse seems to enjoy the challenge. You do not. On the other side, a yurt sits alone. No flag, no smoke. Odd. You approach slowly, paiza in hand, but there's no response. You dismount, cautious. Inside, the yurt is cold, dark, and completely abandoned. Dust lines the edges. The fire pit is dead. A single half-burned torch lies on the floor. You feel something tighten in your chest. The horse shifts nervously outside. This station has been evacuated. Or worse. You leave quickly, not bothering to search. The message must keep moving. You ride harder now, harder than before. The scrolls press against your side, humming with secrets you'll never read. The sun is sinking again, a yoke bleeding across the sky. But you're not done. The empire is wide, the roads are long, and there's always someone waiting at the next station, tea in hand, pretending they don't care what you're carrying. The path bends now, winding through shallow ridges carved by time and wind. The sun dips lower, staining everything bronze. The rocks, the scrub grass, even the sweat darkening your horse's flanks. There's a stillness to this part of the steppe, like even the air has paused to listen. You're alone again, but not truly. The scrolls in your satchel feel heavier, though you know they haven't changed. What's changed is the terrain and the stories people whisper about this stretch. You've heard it called the Shadow Mile, though it's at least 10 miles long. Some say messages vanish here, others say riders do. The truth? You've made it through before. Probably. Up ahead, a shape looms on the horizon. At first, you think it's a hill or a yurt. But as you ride closer, you realize it's a ruin. Stone bones of a once fortified station. The walls are half collapsed, burned black in places. Someone tried to defend it long ago. They failed. You don't stop. Not here. Instead, you pass wide, keeping one hand near the satchel and one eye on the ridge above. No movement, no sound, but your horse's hooves. Still, the silence feels watched. You push the horse into a canter, your heartbeat rising with the dust. Finally, a ridge opens before you, and there it is. A functioning relay station. You didn't realize you were holding your breath until you exhale all at once. This station is older. Its walls made of stacked mud brick, reinforced with timber beams that creak when the wind shifts. You smell smoke, hear laughter. Two boys are chasing a chicken that has absolutely no interest in participating. You dismount slowly, stretching your legs and ignoring the crackle of your joints. The station keeper approaches with a half smile and a crooked mustache. He doesn't speak, just points to your badge and then to the yurt. Inside, it's warm, someone's boiling horse bones for soup. You sit, sip, let the heat reach your spine. After a moment, the station keeper enters, holding out a wooden tray with something unexpected. A pair of thin, delicate gloves, embroidered, slightly worn. Courier's gloves. You raise an eyebrow. Cold ride ahead, he says. Mountains. Mountains, of course, you'd nearly forgotten. You accept the gloves, slipping them on. The fabric is stiff, the fingertips patched, but they fit, just barely. You eat what you can, dumplings stuffed with something suspiciously crunchy, broth full of floating herbs, and a square of dried cheese that tastes like regret. Still, it's food. While you eat, the station keeper shares a rumor. A rider went north 2 days ago, didn't reach the next station. You don't reply. Just sip your broth a little slower. You wonder which message he carried, whether it ever made it, whether he wore a badge like yours. Whether someone will whisper your story in a yurt like this if you don't return. The Mongol postal system relied on layers, not just in logistics, but in legend. Every station passed messages, every station passed stories, some true, some invented, but all stitched into the fabric of the road. Historians still argue about how much of this oral lore influenced Mongol planning. Did commanders trust these whispers, or were they merely for entertainment between battles? One scholar once wrote, "The yam was half bureaucracy, half bedtime story." You believe it. You've lived it. You stand, adjust your satchel, and step outside. The sky is shifting again, sunlight bleeding toward the western rim. The air smells of pine now, faint and high. You're entering the edge of the mountains. The new horse is short, muscular, built for climbing. It eyes you like it's already tired of your company. You mount. The station keeper hands you a small talisman, woven grass, looped in the shape of a spiral. "Charm for luck," he says. You nod. Tuck it into your sleeve. No such thing as too much superstition when you're carrying state secrets into high ground. The path narrows quickly. From wide plains to tight passes, flanked by dark rocks that echo your horse's breath. The temperature drops. You pull the gloves tighter and try not to think about how exposed you are. The road disappears in places, crumbling into loose shale. You guide the horse carefully, one hoof step at a time. No galloping here, not unless you want to test gravity the hard way. Then, rounding a bend, you stop cold. A boulder blocks the path ahead, freshly fallen, still dusted with snow. You dismount, testing the edges, looking for a way around. It's not impossible, just inconvenient. You sigh, unclip your satchel, and begin climbing, because the empire must move, even when the mountains don't. The rock scrapes your gloves as you scramble over it, one foot searching for a grip, the other pushing off loose gravel. Your satchel swings against your back like a reminder, don't fall. Not now. Not with 2 scrolls stitched to your spine and the air growing thin. At the top you pause, not to admire the view, though truth be told it's staggering, but to catch your breath. Below, the narrow path twists through pines like a spilled thread. Somewhere down there your horse waits patiently, chewing moss, or chewing your saddle, depends on its mood. Up ahead, the path continues, but it's tighter now, more vertical, the kind of road that laughs at wheels and mocks the concept of momentum. You shoulder your satchel and keep going. The Mongols weren't known for building bridges. They built paths, sure, carved into ridges, reinforced with logs, sometimes marked with cairns or bits of cloth tied to trees. But in most cases, they didn't need roads. They followed memory. You step carefully over a patch of black ice, slipping only once, and grip a root for balance. The scrolls inside your satchel shift slightly. You tighten the strap. These aren't just documents, they're alive. You can feel it now. Carrying them is like being part of something larger than your own skin. Eventually, you descend back to your horse, who greets you with an annoyed snort and a judgmental blink. You mount and ride on. The next station is hours away, tucked inside a forest glade, and you know the route is peppered with hazards, loose rock, cold creeks, and if the rumors are true, wolves. You don't mind wolves. Wolves are honest. It's the bandits that concern you, especially the ones who used to be messengers. The Mongols called them shadow riders, former couriers who vanished from the route only to reappear months later, robbing their replacements. Some say they were deserters, others say they were blackmailed. Either way, they knew how to avoid detection because they'd once been the detection. You keep your paiza tucked just a little deeper beneath your tunic now. Better to flash it only when needed. The trail twists again, and suddenly you are riding along the edge of a ridge with a sheer drop to your left. The wind whistles. You resist the urge to look down. Instead, you look up at the trees, the birds, the sliver of sky. You see something, smoke, thin, grey, curling just above the treetops. Too far to smell, too close to ignore. You stop the horse listening. Nothing. Then faintly the sound of a kettle whistle, or maybe a flute. You can't tell. You debate riding closer, investigating. Then you remember the scrolls, the rules, no delays, no detours, unless ordered. You urge the horse forward, keeping the smoke in your periphery, like a temptation you've chosen to resist. The path soon curves away, and the forest swallows the smoke without a sound. You exhale. Historians still argue how much leeway Mongol couriers had. Could they stop to help villagers? Could they investigate trouble? Or were they forbidden to interfere, their only duty to the message? Some say exceptions were made. Others say those exceptions were buried in the same graves as the messengers who made them. You choose not to test the theory. As the afternoon fades, the path flattens slightly. You come upon a curious sight, a wooden pole driven into the earth, with a string of knots tied around it. You slow the horse and dismount. There are 5 knots, evenly spaced. Each one dyed a different color: blue, red, black, white, and yellow. You've seen these before. Signal cords used to send word between stations when a rider wasn't available. The colors correspond to different meanings: weather, war, plague, supply issues, or sometimes personal messages between station keepers. You don't touch it. You just nod to it, as one courier might to another, then mount again and continue. Dusk arrives like a slow sigh. The air cools, birds vanish, the world softens. You spot the next relay station just as the last rays of sunlight turn the forest gold. This one is built into a hollow between two hills, protected on three sides. Smart design. Firelight flickers through the cracks in its walls. You ride in, blinking against the sudden warmth. The keeper offers no words, just gestures toward a basin of water and a wooden cup. You wash, drink, then sit beside the fire as he ladles soup into a bowl. It tastes like onion and something that once crawled. It's wonderful. You share glances but no stories. He doesn't ask where you've been. You don't ask what he's seen. This is the way of things. In the Mongol postal system, the greatest skill wasn't riding or fighting. It was discretion. Some things are carried, not said. The keeper rises and disappears behind a curtain. When he returns, he holds a small package, tied in red thread, sealed with wax. He sets it beside you, says nothing. You look at it, then at your satchel, then back to the fire. You don't sleep. You never sleep when the satchel gets heavier. Dawn doesn't so much break here as gently seep. Light filters through pine needles in thin beams, dappled and hesitant, like it knows better than to rush a courier at rest. You're already awake, of course, have been for hours. The kind of half-sleep only messengers know. One ear open, one hand on the satchel, always listening for hoofbeats or knives in the dark. The new package sits in your lap. It's smaller than the scrolls, heavier. A sealed wooden box wrapped tightly in waxed leather, no markings save a single carved glyph, an arrow tipped with a crescent moon. You don't know what it means, but it hums somehow. The station keeper didn't explain, just nodded toward your satchel with a look that said, "Make space." So you do. Now you ride with 3 messages, each one pressing against your ribs like unspoken questions. You feel like a walking contradiction, entrusted with the Khan's fastest system of communication, yet never told what you're communicating. It's fine. You've gotten used to being a glorified whisper. You mount the newest horse, short, stocky, suspicious of everything, and ride into the morning mist. The air is damp, cool, and thick with the smell of pine sap and wet bark. Birds flicker through the branches. Your breath steams in front of you. You pass a small stream, water running clear over stones. A fallen tree forms a crude bridge, but you ford through. Boots soaked, skin bracing, but better to trust the stream than the balance beam. Ahead, the forest opens, and the land flattens into wide meadows. You recognize this region. You're getting close to the central ring of the Yam system, where major routes converge and the roads get wider, smoother, and more frequently used. You'll start seeing more couriers, more stations, more eyes, and fewer places to disappear. It's not safer, just busier. As if on cue, you spot a rider in the distance, headed your way, fast. You keep riding, so does he. At 20 paces, you both slow. Flash your badges, exchange nods, then pass. No names, just the acknowledgement of shared burden. You wonder what he's carrying. It might be identical to your own package, another sealed box, another message meant only for one pair of eyes. Or it might be something completely different. A letter to a warlord, an order to move troops, a marriage proposal between distant Khanates that will end in either peace or very elaborate bloodshed. The Mongols weren't sentimental about politics. If 2 provinces needed uniting, they'd marry their children and build a yurt big enough to hold both armies. If that didn't work, they'd marry someone else or send a horse. Same difference. Historians still argue how centralized these decisions were. Did the great Khan dictate all diplomacy himself? Or were regional leaders left to barter marriages and trade pacts through postal routes like yours? It's hard to say. You ride on. Hours pass. Your hands go numb from gripping the reins, and your thighs ache from the rhythm of the saddle. The road is smoother now, trampled flat by the hooves of thousands before you, but it doesn't matter. Pain is part of the package. You spot another courier. This one limping on foot, his horse gone. You slow, ask if he's injured. He shakes his head, gestures west. Horse ran. I sent message with another rider. You? You gesture east. 3 messages. He whistles low. Busy day. You toss him a strip of dried meat. He nods thanks. You don't linger. Time is a beast you never stop feeding. By midday, you reach a multi-yurt relay station, far larger than the rest. A crossroads hub. Flags of multiple provinces flap from poles. You see riders from all corners, silk-clad envoys from the east, desert-weathered couriers from the south, even a foreign merchant-looking type nervously petting a giant mule. You're waved to a rest yurt. Inside, the chaos fades. A boy brings you tea with goat's milk. A woman in layered robes offers bread. You don't speak, just eat. Then someone clears their throat behind you. You turn. It's an officer, not military, but one of the Imperial dispatch masters. A robe of blue-gray, embroidered with gold thread. She doesn't smile. "I'll take the box," she says. You hesitate. "Badge check first." She flashes it. Platinum inlaid. You've never seen one like it. You unhook the leather-wrapped bundle and hand it over. She doesn't thank you, just nods once. Then she turns and disappears behind a curtain. The weight lifts from your chest, but only a little. Still 2 scrolls remain. You're given a new horse. Sleek, restless. You're not told where it came from, but its saddle fits perfectly. Like it's been waiting. You mount again, glance at the horizon, and begin the next leg. The wind picks up. So does your pace. The Empire breathes through you, and you never stop. The road from the crossroads stretches straight and sure, a rare moment in a life defined by curves and surprises. You lean forward slightly, urging the horse into a smooth canter, the wind tugging gently at your sleeves. There's rhythm here, predictability. Even the birds overhead seem to be flying in formation. You're heading into territory considered tame by Mongol standards, flatlands between major towns, dotted with stone markers and border pavilions. No wilderness here, no wolves, just the quiet, unnerving efficiency of the Empire's best-kept arteries. You pass riders at regular intervals, some messengers, some merchants, all traveling faster and lighter than you'd expect. Everyone's in motion like blood through capillaries. No one stops to chat. You're reminded of something a former station keeper once said, half drunk on fermented mare's milk. Out here, words move faster than war, and that's how the Khan wins. It's true. The Mongol postal system, the Yam, outpaced entire armies. Outpaced disease in some cases. It wasn't just the riders. It was the coordination, the speed of decisions, the fact that a message from Karakoram could reach Persia in weeks while other empires were still arguing over how to spell the sender's name. There is an old joke among couriers. If Genghis had a choice between 10,000 archers and one good messenger, he'd send the archer to fetch the messenger. You think about that as you ride, because today you're the messenger. And behind you, somewhere far back down the route, is a general who might already be preparing a siege, based on words you haven't even delivered yet. Eventually, you reach a checkpoint, marked by 2 stone pillars and a pair of bored-looking guards in leather armor. One waves you through, the other leans in, eyes your satchel, then nods once, and returns to whittling a stick into what might become a fork or a very useless spear. Beyond the pillars, the land opens into a series of farms, not the scattered goat-holding homesteads of the highlands, but organized imperial plots. Wheat, mostly, neatly arranged rows, the kind of land that says, we conquered this and then we scheduled it. You pass an irrigation canal, ducks blink at you. A child waves from a fence post, sticky with honey or mud or both. It's almost peaceful, almost. You stop briefly at a supply hut, not a formal relay, but part of a system of side posts stocked with grain, water, and spare horses. These places aren't for resting, they're for refueling. A boy hands you a chunk of hard bread. You nod thanks, bite down, regret it, and keep chewing anyway. Inside, a dusty board lists message codes. You scan it quickly. Nothing relevant to your route, but there's one symbol circled 3 times, a red crescent with 3 dots. You frown. It's a code you've only seen once before. No one ever told you what it meant. You ride on. Hours pass. The sun arcs lazily across the sky, indifferent to your aches. You shift in the saddle, trying to stretch your back without stopping. One scroll pokes uncomfortably against your ribs. The other seems to whisper, or maybe that's just your stomach. You glance behind you more often now. Why? You're not sure. There's nothing visible on the road. Just the shimmering heat and the occasional dust plume from another rider. Still, something nags at the edge of your awareness. Then it clicks. You haven't seen a military scout in nearly a day. Normally, they patrol this stretch, subtle, sure, but present. A banner here, a lookout post there. Today, nothing. You file that thought away. Because just ahead lies one of the Yam's proudest installations, the Siege Courier training station. It's not marked, not in the official records, but it's real, tucked into a low valley behind a ridge of dark stone, hidden from most eyes. You were sent here once for 3 days of advanced message survival. You remember the drills, carrying coded orders through mock battlefields, navigating flaming hay bales, memorizing complex dispatches while being pelted with dried goat dung. It was enlightening. You pass its entrance without stopping. They don't like visitors. Still, the presence comforts you, reminds you you're part of a larger machine. Historians often marvel at the engineering of the Mongol siege army, its collapsible towers, trebuchets dragged across deserts, supply chains longer than most rivers. But they sometimes overlook the fact that behind all that machinery was a flow of paper and breath. Couriers like you, carrying timing orders, troop placements, supply maps, weather forecasts. Without the Yam, the war engines would rust. Without the Yam, the empire would stall. You ride harder now, faster, not because someone's chasing you, but because you might be outrunning the future. The scent of campfire smoke reaches you before the sight of another station. You pull gently on the reins, slowing the horse to a trot. You're nearing a nexus stop, one of the bigger stations where multiple postal routes overlap, information intersects, and couriers accidentally share more than their saddle sores. This one's called Split-Tooth by riders, though its real name is something longer and less memorable. The nickname came from a story, a station keeper who bit into frozen cheese and lost a molar, only to swear the chunk still tasted better than northern tea. The name stuck. Riders remember odd things. Odd. You dismount and lead your horse under the wooden awning that serves as a stable. A boy rushes out with water and a brush. You hand him the reins but keep the satchel over your shoulder. Trust, in places like this, is conditional. Inside the main yurt, you're greeted by warmth and voices. Several couriers are already seated, wrapped in furs and conversation. Someone strums a stringed instrument half-heartedly. Another counts coins while sipping milk wine. They barely glance at you, just another dusty traveler with urgent silence to deliver. You ease down onto a cushion near the stove. The heat hits your spine like forgiveness. After a few sips of barley soup and a bite of mystery bread, you catch pieces of a story. Told her he was a silk inspector. Except the scroll was written in Persian, and he thought it was Mongol. They say the message circled the empire twice before anyone realized the recipient was already dead. You smile without meaning to. The Yam is a system, but it's also a gossip vine, and these stations are its tangled roots. One courier, older, eyes like smoldered coals, leans toward you and murmurs, "You carrying for the capital?" You hesitate. "South Ring," you reply, vague enough to be true. He nods slowly. "Heavy scrolls?" You shrug. They usually are. He chuckles low and dry, then adds, "Mind the drunken relay up ahead." You blink. "The what?" He gestures with his cup. Next station's keeper drinks his own fermented oats, gets the schedule wrong at least once a week. Sent a horse west last month that was supposed to go north. Heard it came back with a different rider and an extra dog. Everyone laughs, except the station master. He sighs. Still, the story lines up with what you've heard. That next station is known for its eccentricities, carts labeled with the wrong symbols, scrolls misplaced, messages swapped. And yet, it persists. Because the Mongol postal system absorbs flaws. It doesn't punish every mistake. It adapts, improvises, relies on riders to notice, correct, and carry on. Historians still argue whether this resilience was by design or necessity. Some call the yam a miracle of bureaucracy. Others say it was simply chaos given structure. You think it's both. Before you leave, the old courier offers you a strip of salted radish. Spicy, pungent, meant to keep you awake. You chew it slowly, eyes watering, grateful. You mount your new horse, one bred for endurance rather than speed. Its hooves strike a steady rhythm as you pass the outer fences, the laughter from the yurt fading behind you. The road curves gently southeast. You pass farmers harvesting millet by moonlight, their sickles catching silver from the sky. A girl leans against a post and stares at you as you pass. Expression unreadable. You raise 2 fingers in a brief wave. She doesn't move. You keep riding. Later, the moon climbs higher, and with it, your thoughts. You wonder how many letters you've carried, how many made it to the right hands, how many changed something, saved a battle, ended a feud, arranged a marriage, or stopped one. You remember the courier who told you, "We don't deliver words, we deliver decisions." You didn't understand then, you do now. Somewhere in your satchel might be the difference between war and peace, between one tribe's survival and another's extinction, but you'll never know. And that's the part you've come to love. There's purity in not knowing. It keeps your duty clean. Dawn approaches again. You spot the next station ahead, lit dimly, shaped like a giant beetle crouched on the step. You ride faster, not because you're late, but because someone is waiting. Someone always is. Your horse's hooves crunch over frozen earth as the station comes into focus. Low-slung yurts, a smoke-blackened chimney, a stack of firewood carefully balanced like a game of pickup sticks. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of boiled millet and wet wool. You've reached a border station, not the edge of the empire, but the edge of comfort. The station keeper steps out, squinting. His robe is layered, patched, and too long for his frame. His belt holds a curved knife, a wooden cup, and strangely, a child's rattle. He doesn't speak, just gestures to the post where you can tie your horse. You dismount, flexing your knees as blood returns. The cold bites harder here, but your gloves hold up. Inside the yurt, the station is lit dimly by a single oil lamp. The walls are covered in maps, not parchment, but stitched felt, each color-coded with thread to represent different routes, settlements, danger zones, and something marked only by tiny skulls. You warm your hands and sip from the cup the keeper offers, some fermented barley mix, sour and slightly fizzy. It bubbles as if laughing at itself. He finally speaks. "You're the 3rd today from the North Ring." You nod. "Any trouble?" He shrugs. "Only the usual." Which, out here, could mean anything from flooded passes to ghost sightings. As you lean back, your eyes land on something curious, a stack of return messages, sealed, intact, undelivered. You raise an eyebrow. "Riders refuse to cross," the keeper mutters, not quite ashamed. "Too far, too uncertain. Said the road past here is cursed." You smirk. "It's also my next stop." He doesn't laugh. Just reaches under a blanket and produces a fresh scroll, adding it to your burden without ceremony. Your satchel is nearly full now. 3 scrolls and a leather-wrapped box. You're a mobile archive. You mount again under the weight of secrets, feeling like a one-person government. The road past the station narrows. It weaves between hills that look like sleeping animals, each one casting long shadows in the morning light. You pass an old border stone, cracked down the middle. Once, this marked the edge of a kingdom. Now, it's a footnote. The Mongol Empire treated borders like suggestions. They erased some, ignored others, redrew many. If a town resisted, it was burned. If it cooperated, it was taxed. If it was too remote to bother, it was surveyed, named, and politely asked to contribute goats. You ride past and search for forgotten place, a scattering of stone huts near a dry river. No flag, no smoke, just a thin trail of hoof prints leading in and out. Someone came, someone left, nothing changed. That's the Mongol postal genius. They didn't wait for cities to matter. They built systems that assumed motion, systems that made towns appear, rather than the other way around. Historians still argue whether this approach inspired later empires. Some say the Ottoman courier system borrowed heavily from Mongol models. Others claim even the Pony Express in America shares Mongol DNA. All we know is no one rode farther, faster, or with more fried nerves than a yam courier on a schedule. You cross a rickety wooden bridge that groans like it's writing its will. On the far side, a new problem emerges. 2 riders, no badges, no gear, just sitting on horses under a twisted tree facing the road. They don't move as you approach. You grip the paiza badge under your tunic and keep your pace steady, eyes forward, posture bored, like you've done this 1,000 times, because you have. At 10 paces, one rider nudges his horse forward, says nothing, just squints. You reach into your satchel, slowly, and pull the paiza halfway out. He stares at it, then at you, then back at his companion. They say nothing. You say nothing. Then, without a word, they turn and ride off in the opposite direction. You don't relax until you've crossed the next ridge. Later, as the land flattens again, you catch sight of something strange. A borderless checkpoint, a row of flags from multiple nations, all flapping in the same wind. This is a neutral node, one of a handful that exist along trade-heavy routes. Here messengers from Persia, China, India, and the steppe meet to exchange scrolls, translate codes, and occasionally cheat at dice. You dismount and step inside a tent striped with red and green. A man with ink-stained fingers greets you in 4 languages before landing on Mongolian. He offers to transcribe one of your messages for backup. You decline. Trust is earned, and yours is currently tied up in wax. Still, you exchange pleasantries, sip thick coffee, and warm your fingers before heading back out. The horse is waiting, the Empire is calling, and you still have scrolls to deliver. Snow begins lightly, not a storm, not yet, just a flurry, like the sky testing your patience. You pull your cloak tighter and nudge the horse onward. The road here is little more than a suggestion, packed dirt hidden beneath patches of frozen brush, twisted roots and hoof-pocked slush. You're deep into the last arc of your journey now. The terrain rises gently and the cold settles in for good. The air has that particular metallic taste it gets just before frostbite becomes more than a hypothetical. Your horse slows, snorting displeasure. Same, friend, same. You pass through a narrow mountain pass called Eel's Spine, a name earned for its serpentine curves and total lack of guardrails. At least the wind has died down, mostly. Well, it's more like a quiet argument now than a full scream. Your satchel is heavier than ever. 3 scrolls, 1 box, 1 sealed pouch you didn't ask for but were handed anyway, with a solemn nod and a whispered, "This one's delicate." You didn't press. The Mongol system was full of couriers within couriers, layers of trust and secrecy. Not all packages came with explanations, some came with rumors, or worse, silence. One whisper says a rider once carried a pouch of black powder from China to Baghdad. Another says a sealed box once held a severed ear, proof of a traitor's demise, delivered like a gift-wrapped warning. Historians still argue whether any of that is true, but out here, on this lonely frozen trail, even the most outlandish tale feels perfectly reasonable. A snow hare darts across your path. Your horse startles, but you hold steady. You ride on. Then, over the next ridge, you see it. A golden roof, glinting beneath the clouds, flanked by a dozen stone towers and red banners flapping furiously. The final station, not just a relay point. This one's a receiving hub, a fortified post near the administrative capital of a major khanate. It's where messages are logged, decoded, and redistributed by clerks who wear more silk than sweat. You ride slowly into the courtyard. Attendants in quilted robes emerge, one leading the horse away, another guiding you by the elbow. You're ushered into a recording tent where the air smells like ink, hot tea, and old books. An official greets you, not with a smile but with a gesture that says, "Sit down, remove the mud, don't speak unless asked." You oblige. Your satchel is opened under supervision. Each scroll is unwrapped, inspected, weighed, marked. The sealed box is treated more carefully, hands gloved, movements precise. The pouch? It's taken without comment, passed into the shadows behind a curtain. You aren't told what it contained. You never will be. Instead, you're handed a ledger to sign, your name, or rider code, route, condition of delivery, a number of relay points passed. You fill it in with cramped, tired letters. The ink blotches halfway through. No one cares. Then comes the unexpected. A sealed envelope placed into your palm. Return delivery. No rest, no reassignment, just a new destination. A fresh saddle, another scroll. You almost laugh, but not quite. The official glances at you, then mutters, "Eat first." You're led to a tent where food waits. Warm broth, sticky rice, something sweet and sticky with dates. You eat quickly, quietly, surrounded by other riders who look just as cracked and wind-bitten. A woman beside you has blood on her boots and a smile like she just won a bet. "Back to Karakoram?" she asks. You shake your head. "Further." She nods. "Good." You don't ask why that's good. You don't want to know. After the meal, you step outside. The snow has thickened. The wind picks up again, reshaping the drifts around the station walls like restless ghosts. You're handed the reins to a new horse, taller, stronger, clearly annoyed. You swing into the saddle, and just like that, you're on the move again. No ceremony, no applause. Just the road, stretching toward whatever part of the empire hasn't heard your hoofbeats yet. The wind now is less of a presence and more of a personality, sharp, petulant, persistent. It whips at your cloak, rattles the harness, and hisses through the mountain pine like a critic unimpressed with your pace. You don't mind. You're almost done. Or so you think. The letter in your satchel, the one handed to you at the receiving hub, is addressed not to a city, nor a noble, nor a governor. It's bound for a field commander, somewhere deep in a war zone. You sigh into the wind. War zones have no relay stations, just dust, noise, and too many opinions about whose horse is faster. Your new horse, to its credit, handles well. It moves like it knows the path before you tell it. A rare gift. You name it something stupid in your head, like Cabbage or Captain Nudge, just to keep your spirits up. You don't say it aloud. That would be disrespectful, probably. The snow lessens as you descend into lower valleys, replaced by muddy patches and the occasional burnt wagon. You see signs of soldiers everywhere, trampled brush, broken spears stuck in tree trunks, discarded cooking pots dented by more than just clumsiness. Soon enough, you're spotted. 2 scouts emerge from the trees, silent, fast, bowstrings drawn. You raise one hand slowly and flash the paiza with the other. They approach, eyes hard. One of them recognizes the badge. He signals his comrade to lower the bow. You're waved through. They say nothing, neither do you. This is how it works. The Mongol military wasn't just powerful, it was painfully organized. Every division had logistical liaisons who awaited messages like this. You find one of them camped near a creek, hunched over a fire that smells like burned onions and something vaguely hoof-shaped. He greets you with a curt nod, then opens the message. His face doesn't change as he reads, but the air does. It tightens. He whistles sharply, and suddenly 6 men appear. They speak in low tones, roll up tents, pack supplies. Something in that letter changed their plan. You'll never know what it said. But that's not your business. Your job is done. You sit near the fire for a moment, letting its heat undo a few knots in your spine. Then the commander approaches again. He holds out a strip of parchment. New assignment. You blink. No rest? You ask lightly. He smirks. Message must reach a port city. West, 7 days' ride. You look at the strip. The instructions are vague, deliberately so, probably contains a cipher, or maybe it's just a blank decoy. You've seen both. You take it, because that's what you do, because couriers in the Yam didn't retire. They rode until their knees failed, or their lungs gave out, or their horses stopped following. Sometimes they stopped in villages, became station keepers, trained the next generation. Sometimes they vanished, but mostly they just kept going. Historians still debate what made the system last so long. Was it fear, pride, pay? You know the answer. It was momentum. The Mongol Empire was built on speed. It trusted motion more than maps. As long as the horses moved and the scrolls changed hands, the empire lived. You mount Cabbage, yes, that name is sticking, and face west. Sunset paints the sky with bands of copper and soft bruised lavender. You ride into it. The road feels endless. That's the point. The Yam was never about reaching the end. It was about never stopping. And as your horse's hooves beat out the rhythm of history beneath you, you feel it again. That quiet certainty, that strange kind of peace. The peace of knowing that while kingdoms rise and fall, while generals squabble and scholars debate, you just keep going. The sun sinks gently now, like a candle lowered into warm milk. The path behind you fades into soft memory. Hoofprints in snow, conversations by firelight, the rustle of scrolls under wool. The hum of the saddle still lingers in your spine, even as your thoughts slow to a quiet, velvety drift. You let go of the road. Let go of the burdened satchel. Let go of the cold wind and the sharp voices and the cracked leather reins. All that's left is breath. Slow, even breath. Somewhere far behind you, letters are still moving. Campfires are being lit. Maps are being unfolded. Horses are being saddled. But here, for now, in this gentle dusk behind your eyelids, there is only peace. The kind carried not on paper, but in the silence between hoofbeats. Let that silence hold you. Let it wrap around your shoulders like the fur-lined cloak of a station keeper at rest. You've traveled far, farther than most. And it's okay now to rest, to breathe, to let the empire ride without you for a little while. You've done your part. You've kept the wind company. You've kept the empire breathing. And now, in this deep and gentle dark, it's time to let go of even that. The world can wait. You sleep now. Sleep, sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.